We've been working on this project for quite a few years now, 3 years. I guess it's quite quick. It's the way most of these projects go, so we should be proud of that. The first thing I'd like to do is thank the community for coming out in these numbers. This is more than 10% of the community, I'm guessing, in here, so makes us feel proud. One of the things we'd like to point out is that this meeting tonight is an informational meeting. This is not a compulsory meeting set up by the government. The proponents are going to tell us all the wonderful things they've planned and how it works. And if you want to have input as to change or anything, there will be government-run meetings later. So this is an opportunity for us to see what's happening, how it's going to affect our community, and actually make a plan as to what's good and what we would like to be even better for this project. So there will be a question and answer period after the presentation, and you can feel free to ask whatever questions I think our proponents can answer. I would like to say that this is a pretty cool thing for both our community and the SIMP community, because this is their territory, and for it to be working together is quite a feather in our cap. We're going to ask Fred Fortier to come up and speak to us on behalf of the SIMP, and Jeanette Townsend will come up and speak to us on behalf of the community. And then we can introduce our proponents and have them tell you what's going on. Fred?
Good evening. I'm Fred Fortier. I'm an elected councillor for the SIMP First Nation. Just wanted to welcome you to what we call Simpgulu, SIMP land, or our homeland. And we've been working in the past 30 years to collect information about our past history to this area, and we have a lot of history in this area, right from Jasper to this side of Dome Creek and all the way down. There's a reserve was formed. There's a couple burial grounds just up the road here in Tijon that we're trying to protect. There's pit house sites all over this area. And so in the past, we've been quite diligent to do a lot of the research and who we are and what our relationship with other First Nations. So what we had requested to all of the people here in the start of any project is that we'd ask other First Nations what kind of information that you have as for use and occupancy, meaning when did you use it, where did you use it, and what names are you associated with? Fishing areas, hunting areas, or is there burial grounds around? Because we would say, if you could produce that evidence, we would share the area. Right now, we haven't seen any other First Nation that has provided us with information. And we've been requesting this information around this area for the past 10 years. So we've had no bites. What we've been doing is we've been entering quite a few other projects. This is just one of the major projects. We're in about 5 or 10 other ones. The geothermal one that we're planning, we have a partnership with that. And we had been approached by Alberto. I probably know Alberto, I don't know when the first time I met you, probably 15 years ago or more. And so I worked in the Columbia for quite a few years as a fisheries representative for our community under the Columbia River Intertribal Fisheries Commission. So I know a lot about fish in this area and anything else in the Columbia. But in this project, one of the things that we were very fortunate to have is a good partner. And all that we request as SIMP people is those proponents to come and talk to us and say, here is what we're going to do. Here is our ideas. What do you think, and can you support this project? And of course, we as First Nations have been quite diligent under the EA process, environmental assessment process, and we know all about the EA process. We've been involved in a whole pile of them. And so we were telling Alberto all of our problems around the EA process and what we didn't like and what we did like about it. And so we thought that we'd be able to design a project that we would help facilitate our positions through the EA process. We know that we have to do archaeological work. We know that the proponent has to do wildlife work. We know bird studies, all of those other studies to show that there's going to be impacts, right? They'll be talking about those as well. But so we're very fortunate to have Alberto come to us and talk to us. And we've been behind this project for the last 3 or 4 years now. We hope that the ability of this community and the other outlying communities around here that will be able to incorporate some of your ideas into the plan. And so we hope that will be something that you can put forward, because this project's not going to survive just by Alberto and us. This project will have extreme benefits for a lot of people. And as St. people, one of our principles that we have and dearly hold, if the local people don't benefit, what good and use is that project? Because we say that as St. people because for the last 100 years, we have been left out of the main street economics. So we know where you are. We see the high school. We did presentations. You've got a beautiful high school here. Very little students though, right? We've seen the destruction of the forest industry. We've seen the decline in the economy in small communities. We are also affected. So you're in the same position that we are. We want to see sustainable economic development, and we want to be part of that. And we want to share in those benefits. So I hope that as a community as a whole, that you get behind the project and you ask lots of questions, because at the end of the day, we will need your support to put this project through. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight, and your journey home will be safe. Cook stem.
Jeanette Townsend will now say something on behalf of the community of Valemount.
Thank you, Bruce. And I'm not coming up there because I fell and fractured my knee. So, but everybody can see me from here well enough. So, good evening, everybody, and our special guests. And are you a chief or what? You're a councillor. Well, councillor, welcome to Valemount. Okay. So, first of all, I should like to welcome everybody here, and I think this speaks volumes about the interest in the proposal. And Wayne, I should like to take this a moment to thank you for, under your chairmanship of the Ski Society, how everything has progressed to date, and successfully and quietly, and well done. And to our special guests, Mr. Oberti and his group. So I know that everyone in town is very excited about this project. I see Arnold Weed, John Peterson, and a few others that were on the Village of Valemount and Area Economic Development Committee early in the 90s. And in 1995, when we had that plan drawn up by, Arnold is nodding his head yes, by Jack Johnson, and it was on the back burner and wish list for a long time. And I know that Mr. Oberti has a reputation for being very successful in all of his projects, and we can look forward to a successful development here too. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.
So I guess what everyone's here for is to hear what this is all about. I'm going to introduce Mr. Steve Leahy. He's president or lead on the project, and he's going to introduce all the rest of them to you as they are needed to speak to you and tell you what their parts of this are.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And all I can say really is wow. This is a tremendous turnout, and for what we believe also is a tremendous project. Let me introduce, first of all, our team. Our lead, obviously, which everyone probably mostly knows, is Alberto Oberti, right here. Tommaso Oberti over there, he will be part of the presentation. My son, Mike Leahy, over there. Right. Jill Bodkin is on board of the directors. Greg Marchand, where's Greg? He's at the back. He's our latest addition, and certainly one of our most important additions. One of the things that's really so important about this project, when Alberto started talking to me about it, I said to my son Mike, I said, well, we got to go up there. Well, we came up here, and we fell in love with the mountains. It was like, the vistas were just incredible. I mean, stunning. And then we drove to the Columbia ice fields. I looked around at this dirty brown chunk of ice and I wondered, is there a disconnect here? In any event, then we needed to know, is the community, 2 times, community Village of Valemount, community Sims First Nations, are they interested in having a group like us come up and trying to do something? Well, the answer we got initially, and have continued to get, is a resounding yes. If there's no, we need to know that. Because we're not interested in fighting. We're not interested in convincing. We're interested in showing you what we think is the best, listening to you as to why maybe it should be changed or it's not the best. Because that's one of the reasons for tonight. It is so important to us as we go through this process, regulatory process, that we don't come and have 50 people at the end of September say, you know what, you got it all wrong. What we want to know is tonight and tomorrow and the next few months, Steve, Alberto, you got it wrong. You got to change this, you got to do that. Or why are you doing this way? We need those questions. So I really hope tonight, at the end of our presentation, that there's a lot of people who want to ask a lot of questions. This is your community. We are coming to you. We're the visitors. We are not mainstream. We want to be mainstream. But you got to tell us how to do that. You have to tell us that we're welcome. And you have said so far, what I have heard. And that's unbelievable. But we also have to tell us what's wrong. If we don't hear what's wrong and we don't notice it, we cannot fix it. This is the time to fix it. So, with no further ado, by the way, one other thing. I travel a lot, you know, and around the world and all different places and stuff like that. When I talk about this project, and I have no problem talking, believe me, but I talk about this project and I show this project, and people in Geneva and people in Hong Kong and people in Sydney, Australia say what I said when I came up here. Wow. That's critical, because that's going to be part of our audience. You will see, we've done our homework. Part of our audience is going to be not just the people driving here from Prince George, from Edmonton, or from other places. This is going to be a world-class destination, and we are going to build it. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Tom Alberti, in case you didn't get that the first time. I'm a planner on the project. I'm also a director of Valemount Glacier Destinations. Following up those last 3 speeches will be a tough gig, but I'll make up for it in length as opposed to quality. So let me figure out how this thing works here. Nope. There we go. In January 2011, there was a phone call to our office from the Village of Valemount. And as Steve mentioned, everybody has always said yes to this project. We actually said no. We said we don't do projects without a client. We don't do projects without full support. We don't do projects that don't have First Nation support. So we said thank you for the phone call. We appreciate your interest. We find Valemount to be an intriguing place, but until we have a client, we are not interested in the project. Lo and behold, Stephen Leahy came along, and a client was found. And we went to the SIMC, who, Fred, thank you for your wonderful speech earlier. The SIMC, of course, are the traditional, or actually it's their territory, and we told them about the proposal from the Village of Valemount, which was initially for a resort on Mount Albreda. And they said to go speak to Mike Regley, their partner, whose Husky territory Mount Albreda is. And so we went to speak to Mike, and Mike wasn't keen on a project in his territory, which was actually a great thing, because our company had done studies in the 90s and in the 80s to try to identify which locations in BC are the best for a mountain resort destination. I'm going to get to that in a couple slides, actually. Sorry, I'm digressing. But the question is, before we get into that, the question is there room for a new resort in BC? The common wisdom is that the market is saturated. The market is flat and hasn't expanded in many years. But the North American and international ski market isn't homogeneous. I like to describe it as there's Ferraris, there's Toyotas, and there's car I drive, and there's a wide variety of product. What has happened in the past 30 years is that the resorts in eastern North America, except for Quebec, have fallen in terms of skier visits. The resorts in Colorado and in the West, and particularly in British Columbia, have risen dramatically in terms of skier visits. This is for a number of reasons, but primarily because skiers are becoming more mobile and are not satisfied with a mediocre product. One of the most telling statistics out there is the fact that American skiers have visited Europe in enormous numbers in recent years, to the point where Switzerland gets the same number of American skiers as all of Canada, which is startling if you think about it. As I mentioned, our group was commissioned to look for the ideal locations for a ski resort in North America in the 80s and 90s. And this resulted in the discovery of the Purcell Mountains and the Kootenays and the Premier Range up here. British Columbia's mountains and their interior ranges are some of the best locations for skiing in the entire continent. This is because of three factors primarily. One is climate. We have reliable snow, we have reliable temperatures. Two is elevations. We have mountains that are in the 3,000 meter range of elevation. And three is access. These are accessible mountains. They're not in national parks. They're not far away from existing infrastructure. They're near international airports, relatively near. They're off of well-maintained highways. But the fact of the matter is that, and this is the blue stripe on the map right there is where we've located the best mountains for skiing in North America. And this is significant for British Columbia because we have a product, which are our mountains, that are not known by the world except for via heli-skiing. Our mountains today our ski resorts are a result largely of mining camps, forestry camps, and they're a product of convenience rather than of study in terms of what is an ideal location for a ski resort. By opening up these mountains with elevations that provide world-class vertical drops, glacier skiing, incredible sightseeing, we provide a product that will attract the modern skier. Currently, the biggest ski market in North America is Colorado. Colorado generates around 12 million skier visits a year. British Columbia generates around 6. Colorado has twice the number of ski resorts as British Columbia. But Colorado has a smaller population than BC. Neighboring Utah has a smaller population than neighboring Alberta. So, and together these Alberta and BC and Utah and Colorado form the ground zero, if you will, of Western skiing, Western North America skiing. What we have that Colorado does not have is vertical drops. Colorado has mountains that are very high in elevation, but there's valley bases that are also very high, so their vertical drops are small. Their mountains aren't particularly impressive to look at. That's a picture of Vail and Aspen at the bottom of the screen there. And compared to our mountains in our backyard here, they look like hills, quite frankly. But Colorado does have an extremely reliable climate. Colorado, if you're booking a vacation, if you're from New York City and you're booking a ski vacation for next year, you know that if you go to Aspen Vale or Telluride or one of those places, that you're likely to get quality snow, reliably deep snow, and you're going to get good weather. The skier market has, as I mentioned earlier, has risen in the west, declined in the east, and has become much more mobile. I'm going to motor through some of these slides because this is quite a long presentation. But what's more significant is that in Western Canada, since the opening of Blackcomb in 1980, our skier visit numbers have grown by 400%, from about 2 million to 6 million. This underscores a very important consideration. Skiing is product driven. If you don't have a lift, you don't have a skier, except for Joe Newsy, wherever you are. But for the most part, we need lifts to get up and ski down, and that's why we call it a product-driven industry. What happened when Blackcomb opened in 1980? The skeptics thought that Blackcomb would steal Whistler skiers and cause the ruin of both Blackcomb and Whistler. Instead, what happened was that the competition between the two mountains created a critical mass of infrastructure, of lifts, that made Whistler and Blackcomb together interesting to long-haul travelers. So instead of just having people from Vancouver, suddenly people from Seattle, people from Calgary, people from Toronto started coming and discovering Whistler, to the point where today it's the largest ski resort in North America. And in terms of skier visits, I think 8th or 9th in the world. Yet Whistler is not, in our view, a true quality international destination because it has an Achilles heel. Its Achilles heel is that its base elevation is only 650 meters, which is well below the natural snow line. It has a high vertical because of the low base elevation, but it also, and it's susceptible to Pacific storms, unreliable weather, rain at Christmas time. You never know what you're going to get with Whistler. A true international destination combines skiing and sightseeing guaranteed by glaciers, elevation, and climate. A true international destination has large, impressive mountains with great scenery. A true international destination is accessible with relatively easy infrastructure costs. And that location can be in a park, or in a conservation area, or in any other area that has serious environmental concerns. And lastly, but most importantly, there must be community support, and that includes First Nations support. We all know where Valemount is, obviously, but what people in the larger urban centers don't realize is that Valemount is actually very centrally located in terms of international airports. There's Prince George, Kamloops, Calgary, and Edmonton, all within a reasonable driving distance. To keep things in perspective, Telluride, Colorado is in the middle of nowhere. It's 8 hours from Denver. Jackson Hole, Wyoming is also in the middle of nowhere, relatively speaking. And without their own airports, those resorts would have never become what they are today. Valemount obviously has its own airport with great expansion potential, and it is well served by existing infrastructure. We were fortunate to work on Kicking Horse. Kicking Horse provides a precedent for Valemount in terms of the efficiency of the review process. It was completed in a relatively short amount of time. It was constructed and it opened in a very short period of time. Construction started in the spring of 2000, and the resort opened in December of the same year. The opening for Valemount is expected to be similar in that we will build a day lodge, which I'll show you in a few slides, and a mountaintop restaurant at the top of Twilight Glacier, and provide day skiing and sightseeing access to the mountain in a short construction phase. we're very proud of Kicking Horse. Kicking Horse is a great project. It's the first project in Canada where you have access to the top of a mountain, you have a restaurant, and you have a view of the other side of the mountains. Yet Kicking Horse only reaches 2450 meters. Mount Arthur Mayen is 3290, I think it is. Anyway, so we're over 3,200 meters. And there's no glaciers at Kicking Horse. So this is an order of magnitude greater than what Kicking Horse is in terms of what we have in our backyards with regards to mountains. There's a new master plan concept with Valemount. We're not following the kind of formulaic approach to planning that has been popularized in North America. We're proposing access to an incredible viewpoint and year-round skiing right off the bat. The reason for this is because without it, there's no reason really to come to Valemount. Without something that is better, more spectacular, or more worthwhile than all the resorts that are between you and your airport, there's you're likely, if you're coming from Calgary, you're likely to stop at, say, Kicking Horse. If you're coming from Vancouver, maybe Sun Peaks. Marmot Basin, if you're coming from Edmonton. So it's of critical importance to provide a destination, something that that has a wow factor. This master plan addresses industry fundamentals. The mountain resorts should be located at higher elevations or in mountain ranges where climatic conditions are favorable. That existing mountain resorts are challenged by low elevations, as I just mentioned. Whistler has a valley base of 650 meters. Revelstoke, which has the longest vertical drop currently in North America, has a valley base of 500 meters. Good climate, views, high elevations, glaciers, and access are among the fundamental prerequisites for successful resorts. The BC Interior region, on the western side of the national parks of the Canadian Rockies, has ideal mountains responding to the ski and tourism industry fundamentals. So high elevations, 3,200 meters, largest vertical drop in North America, up to 2,200 meter vertical drop. Put that in perspective, Revelstoke is at 1,700 meters. So this is half a kilometer longer. The longest in the world is Chamonix, Mont Blanc, but most of it is out of bounds skiing. Chamonix Mont Blanc is 2,800 meters. Second highest is Zermatt, which is also 2,200 meters. It's about 90 meters higher than Valemount. So in effect, Valemount will be tied for the biggest vertical drop in the world in a controlled environment. It also will have one of the longest ski runs in the world, about 18 kilometers for the longest ski run. You can, it'll be a thigh burner, that's for sure. But there's other ways down the mountain. You don't have to take that one. And the snow here is reliable. We've had one of the worst snow years on record, and yet there's still about a meter of snow at the resort base at the moment. These are pictures of the glaciers. Until now, access to these glaciers has only been accessible to heli skiers or true mountain climbers. It's as I think Steve mentioned in his speech, in the national parks, there's no way you can get to the top of the beautiful mountains you have in Jasper and Banff National Parks. Your entire experience is in the valley base. The Columbia Ice Fields, again, it's a basic visit. The Sulphur Mountain Gondola in Banff doesn't take you to the top of a mountain. It takes you to a ridge. The Jasper Tramway, same thing. There's no way to access glaciers anywhere in North America, which is, if you compare it to the European experience, they've been doing it for over 100 years, and they've been doing it with great success without needing to sell real estate, for example. There's a railway in Switzerland that was built in 1896 that today makes over $100 million a year in revenue. And there's no skiing, it's just sightseeing. This is Twilight Glacier. Twilight Glacier is the essential first step of the project. To provide access to Twilight Glacier, you get an incredible viewpoint and you get year-round skiing. The summer skiing is on the glacier, is on snow, of course, on top of the glacier. And it's not huge, but it is enough for local ski teams, regional ski teams to train on, and to avoid having to go to places like New Zealand or Chile to ski in the summer months. This is a photograph of people skiing on Twilight Glacier a couple years ago. The next step is an order of magnitude greater in terms of impressive scenery and summer skiing, and that's Mount Arthur Mayen. And this will be reached in phase 2 and further extended in phase 3. The resort is planned for the bench just above the airport. It'll be very compact and environmentally sustainable with a small footprint. It will have a small pedestrian resort village with easy ski in, ski out. The entire resort is designed to be ski in, ski out. And it'll be accessed from an improved forestry road. After the opening phase, there will be a base area near the airport, and day skiers and day visitors will park at that base area and ride a lift up to the upper village and the upper ski runs. The master plan is for skiing and sightseeing. The sightseeing component is really important. The sightseeing component is what is one of the things that differentiates this project from many other ski resort projects of the past and present and future in North America, in that it is designed to tap into the Jasper National Park visitors, even Banff National Park visitors, and the sightseeing visitor numbers are a lot higher than skier visit numbers. Jasper National Park receives close to 4 million visitors a year, Banff between 7 and 8. Whistler gets about 2 million skier visits and an additional maybe 1.5 million non-skier visits a year. So we're talking about being next door to something that's greater than Whistler and accessing and providing an opportunity to view mountains and glaciers that are far greater than what's available in Jasper National Park. The master plan, this is a Google Earth view of the master plan. It's probably hard to see from where you're sitting, but it shows the lifts and the ski runs in perspective. This is the master plan in a more simplified form. The red lines, I'll use this pointer here. The red lines down the middle here are the phase 1 lifts, and this is what we call the spine of the project. And this will provide access from the village, which is where my pointer is right now, to Twilight Glacier, which is where my pointer is now. There will be a lift down Twilight Glacier opening 3 bowls of skiing, spectacular skiing. There will be T-bars for summer skiing on the glacier itself. And there will be a intermediate/beginner area on the face of Mount Trudeau. This in a nutshell is phase 1. Phase 1 will have a big vertical drop, not the biggest in North America, but close. It'll be around 1,400 meters vertical. And it'll have a run that's about 9 kilometers altogether to ski out. And so it'll be a substantial resort right off the bat. But its calling card won't be necessarily its vertical. Its calling card will be access to glaciers that are nowhere else accessible at this level and at this grandeur in North America. This is a rendering of the project at build out. The resort village is right in the center there. Another view, and again, the resort village is where my pointer is now. This is Twilight Glacier up here, Mount Arthur Mayen. This is a view of the resort village. Again, really compact. This is basically it. This is there's a hotel, condo buildings, a plaza, a pedestrian walkway. There are a number of other facilities, including a cross-country skiing area, a tubing area, a zip line area. There's off the map. There's dog kennels and horse sleigh ride facility. We have snowmobile parking. One of the things we try to do here is be genuine to what happens in Valemount today, and we recognize that snowmobiling is a big component of what happens in Valemount today. So we incorporated that into the planning and have designated some trails for snowmobiling to access, say, the West Ridge or other areas that are currently popular. We also recognize that cross-country skiing is important. We recognize that there's the full gamut of winter sports are important in Valemount, not just skiing. This is a rendering of the resort village, that build-out. This is the day lodge. This will be the first building built at the resort. It will provide ticketing facilities, ski rental, a restaurant, the ski school, and it'll be designed to be in a style that conforms to the design guidelines we've created for the resort. And the design guidelines are based on what we find to be authentic national park style architecture. We want it to be, as I mentioned just a second ago, we want it to be authentic, we want it to be genuine. This project is a result of policies and laws that BC has put together to encourage development of its tourism industry. In particular, it follows the all-season resort policy, and there's a very clearly defined reward mechanism in that policy, in that when a developer puts in infrastructure, they get a corresponding right to buy crown land at a particular price in order to develop it. But it's contingent on putting in enough infrastructure for the to create a viable tourism facility. This is an excellent policy and system that's worked well. It was started when Whistler had problems in the 70s, and it's worked well throughout the years in different resorts in BC. So we're responding to that policy. We believe that the tourism industry is a truly sustainable industry. We think that we like to say that we mine people, not mountains, and that it's a perpetually renewable resource. If you have a facility in the best location, the best locations where there's snow, where there's reliable climate, where there's elevations that are world-class, that can't be beat just by virtue of geography, you have an enduring resource. Nobody can take that away. Nobody can create a mountain like we have in the primary range back here. And for the most part, competing mountains are in parks or, in conservation areas, or they're in very inaccessible locations. The application process. We responded to the call from the Village of Valemount and the subsequent planning with a formal proposal that led to an interim agreement with the province, and this gave us the right to submit a master plan, which we've just submitted in draft form. We've complemented this process with signing an MOU with the Simpcw First Nation, and we're working towards impact and management and benefits agreement. We've made an application for an official community plan amendment and rezoning with the regional district, which has been well received. And we're working to, because the reason why the master plan has been submitted as draft is that we're still waiting for a few studies to come in from the environmental side. There's some studies that can only be done during the summer months, and so when those studies are in, then the master plan becomes final in terms of initial submission. We don't expect much change, but we're initiating the feedback process now instead of waiting for the formal process to start. What will happen is that once the province accepts our plan as final, they will start a review process that's both public and government agency focused. And the public part of it will begin with an open house and a commenting period, anywhere from 30 to 60 days. And will culminate with another open house. So when Bruce said at the beginning that this isn't an official presentation, it's not an official presentation in terms of the approval process, but it's fundamentally the same thing. And we're presenting our plan. We're looking for feedback. We're just starting the process a lot earlier than we would otherwise do. This is a flowchart showing the various steps, various items required in a master plan, and the various steps leading to a master plan approval. I'm not going to bore you with the details. One of the things that the province has done for this project, and largely as a result of your support and your desire to see this project become a reality, is they've harmonized their approval process. In the past, the proponent had to submit a master plan, had to gain a master plan approval, then seek regional approval in the form of an official community plan, and then seek local approval in the form of rezoning, whether it's through a regional district or through a municipality. In this case, we're doing everything concurrently so that the public review processes match, and when we have the master plan, the official master plan review, we will also have the OCP review at the same time. So the next steps are completion of the IMBA with the Simp First Nation, finishing the environmental and some engineering studies, finishing the regional district and provincial review processes, and the public input processes that I just spoke about, and then a final master plan submission. After that submission, we expect to have an approval. We hope to have an approval and an official community plan. After that, then we sign a master development agreement with the province. The master development agreement gives you the right to seek permitting and to start construction. So that's the go button for the project. This is a photograph of the top of Kicking Horse with the tea house and the arrival station of the gondola. It's I've included it in here to give you an idea of what it might look like at the top of Twilight Glacier, but in a more spectacular setting, as in Twilight Glacier is a more spectacular setting than Kicking Horse. This was constructed in a period of mere months after the MDA was granted for the Kicking Horse project, which demonstrates that it is possible to have a quick start to the project, and that's what we're aiming for at this point. There's many unique opportunities for both the people of Valemount and First Nations. I'm going to pass this over to Jill Bodkin, who can speak to this slide a bit better than I can.
Thank you, Tommaso, and again, thank you for the warmth of your welcome. How I came to this project is that my life's work has been building companies and big projects, but I love the part of starting them from the very beginning. And shortly after that momentous phone call in 2011, Alberto contacted me and asked if I was interested in helping out. And so I made a small investment and said I'd be delighted to come and work with the team of people and join the board. But most importantly, what excited me was working with you people. And so from the first time that we came to Valemount to talk about this project, it's been incredibly inspiring, the warmth of your welcome, and we're inspired by your lives, by your stories, and we really want to respect both your past and your future, and the way in which we can join in with that. And I've had the gift of being a mountain girl as I grew up. I grew up in Banff, and one of the things that I just love about you is that when I was young, what I called the old people, now when you're a kid, the old people are the people that are older than your parents. So that's a lot younger than I am now. But those were the larger than life people who had come to the mountains and started to build the alpine experience and to welcome tourists from around the world. And it was a community very much like Valemount. About half of the people came from Europe because they wanted to live this mountain life. And so over even the recent period that we've had the chance to get to know some of you in Valemount, I just have this same stirring of my soul about the way you choose to lead your lives. And so not only is this a big project and a major tourism destination, we know that part of what is going to excite the visitors who come from around the world to be here is learning about your stories, finding out how you live, sharing the kind of experiences that you have. I mean, those of you who have skied and know Twilight Glacier have either climbed there on skins or you know, one way or the other skied in the back country, or hiked or done rafting and so on. And so we want to make sure that you're a part of the hosting experience, and that this really has a good effect on your community, and that these visitors from around the world, Valemount is already, or the mountains here are already on the map in the world. And that's really been from the next generation, from the ones that I grew up with. People like Mike Wigley and Hans Moser, who have opened up to the elite skiers of the world, the mountains around here. What this project is going to do is going to really show off your mountains to the tourists of the world, and we know enough to know how excited people are going to be about the opportunity to come and have both summer and winter experiences with you. I'd just like to tell you about a couple of meetings that we've had this week that really encourage us about some particular things that can help you be a part of this project. One of the meetings was yesterday in Prince George. We met with the Northern Development Trust, who know you well, and you know them way better than you know us. But there were a number of particular things that Janine North and Brenda Gendron told us about that we knew vaguely, but it was great to get down to some specific practical things. There were 4 things that they told us that we think can really help provide some opportunities for local businesses and for you to be a part of the project. One of them is examples where they have programs that can help build local businesses. One of the things we're really committed to doing is to investing both with the TSIMP people and perhaps through the Ski Society or some other mechanism in making sure that you participate in some way in the profits from the project. And they talked to us about ways that we can work probably through the Northern Development Trust to create some funds that you will be able to use to build businesses. We're going to need a lot of different kinds of suppliers, and we're already, some of you have been involved in talking with us about some of the kinds of things, you know, certainly the environmental company of the Tsimp Nation, and some of you that we've talked to about this week and heard the results of some of the wildlife studies and seen these magnificent mountain goat photographs and on Clint's phone over there. I don't know if he's getting them out, but just seeing the kinds of things that provide these kind of businesses, and businesses that will provide to tourists the kind of experience that you're already doing that are maybe already existing businesses or that you want to build as the tourists of the world come to Valemount Glacier Destinations. So that's one of the initiatives that we really want to put in place as an opportunity for co-investment in your businesses that will result from this project. One of the other examples that we learned about was airport improvement. And we looked very carefully before we started this project into the possibility for the airport being expanded, at least around the geography. And we understand that certainly the way the airport is sited in the valley, there's an opportunity to expand it so that it will be able to welcome visitors. And again, we learned about some programs that can perhaps help us invest with the village in improving the airport. We learned about some programs that will help provide, for instance, rental housing, because we know that there will be a greater demand for rental housing as this comes forward, and so we'll be exploring that. And they gave us an example of a hotel in Burns Lake that I think was a joint venture between their First Nation and ATCO, and that these kinds of hotel projects may be able to be something that, or not maybe, they certainly will be an opportunity that we want to work with you on, so that there will be a range of accommodation, both styles and enough accommodation, but that make it with a local flavor as well. So that's one of the kinds of things that we're going to be doing. I also had the opportunity to meet earlier this week with Joe Flannery, who is the president of CMH, and confirm to him our respect for the tourism business that they've built. And we dropped in and had a chance to talk to Mike Wigley, who some of us have known for many years. So we're talking to them about ways in which we will both respect their business, but also try to work together to make both the lift riding public winter and summer have an experience that does cross-selling perhaps with the heli skiing and so on. So we're very excited by you, your future, your children, and the stories of your ancestors. We think that that's going to be a part of the experience, and so we look forward to working more with you.
Thank you, Jill. As you might suspect, the project will generate significant economic impacts. 865 million will be generated in the total economic activity by build-out. This is over 30 years. This is more than just what the cost of construction is. This is the trickle-down effects throughout the province of constructing the 2,000 bed units. 3,185 person years of employment due to construction alone. So if we were to build the entire project in 1 year, it would require 3,185 people to do it. Of course, it's going to be built out over 30 years, so it's that needs to be amortized over 30 years. Approximately 157 full-time year-round jobs will be generated by operations at build-out, and another 479 part-time year-round jobs generated by resort operations at build-out. Approximately 140 million in yearly visitor spending within the village of Valemount at build-out, resulting in approximately 380 full-time equivalent jobs in Valemount. So this is calculated by an economics expert, and is based on visitor spending trends in places like Jasper and Whistler, based on average expenditures per person outside of the ski area. For example, for dinners, for equipment, you name it. Our team, I think you've come to know us a little bit over the years. It includes Phidias, which, as has Oberti Resort Design as a component of it. Oberti Resort Design is a division of Oberti Architecture. Encon Environmental and SSEC Environmental are the environmental consultants on the project. Both have been doing excellent work. McElhaney Consulting Services is the engineering company, road engineers. Golder Associates is geophysical, geotechnical. Dynamic Avalanche Consultants, the leading avalanche consultants in BC, are doing the avalanche work for this project. There are many other specialists, including, rockfall hazard specialists and wastewater treatment plant specialists. The team has been built up over many, many years on different projects. The master plan will be available on March 31st at valemountglaciers.com. If you go to that website now, you'll see a countdown to March 31st. And you'll be able to download it, read it, comment on it. There will be a form on the website for you to send comments privately to the proponent. And there will be eventually also a blog feature where you can comment publicly and discuss the project. We hope that you will participate in this. This is a way for us to get feedback quickly and from as many of you as possible. And I'll leave you with this beautiful picture. We'll move the screen now and set up the table on the stage here and take questions.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciated, number one, the number of people who came out tonight. That's fantastic. And again, as I said before, we want to hear your questions and we want to hear your concerns. So you don't have to do it all tonight, but the fact is we certainly would love to hear a lot of them if you have them. We want to hear them. So Silvio will give the questions and you'll get a microphone, and we hope we can answer your question as succinctly as possible.
In the microphone, please, yes.
I guess my biggest concern, it's nice that you're thinking about the snowmobilers, but as a skier, one of the beautiful parts of being a skier is standing on the mountain on your skis, and it's peace and quiet. And so if you're hearing snowmobiles in the background, that takes away from the effect of skiing.
That's a very good point. It is a reason why we are designing for snowmobilers as well, to keep them away from the skiers. And you will not be able to hear snowmobiles. They'll be up in the West Ridge, and there will just be parking for trailers and for snowmobilers, and they'll be using the West Ridge Road to drive away from the resort. You will not be able to hear them from the ski hill. Of course, you can imagine it in the sense that when you do go skiing, there are snowmobiles on the mountains. Ski patrollers use them. They have to be fairly close to you before you can actually hear them. So your peace as a skier will not be disturbed by snowmobilers.
Thanks, Silvio. One of the concerns I've heard, and I feel myself too, is access to the village from the resort, and to ensure that we have some sort of a transportation system or a corridor through Pine Road or something that's going to allow the resort to be part of the village of Valemount as well as the other way around. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have come up with that. Thanks.
If you look at the master plan at the boards over there, you will see that we are now designing a base with a departure near the airport, and that will be connected with the shuttle to the resort village. So in a sense, we are designing it so that the main departure point, especially for the day skiers, will be seen as an expansion of the village itself. There will be the overnight accommodation up at elevation 1,300 meters, but that will be only for the guests that want to stay on the mountain for ski in and ski out with overnight accommodation. There will be direct access from the valley base for the village to the mountain.
There's a couple other things too. There's very limited retail at the resort village. So basically, if you need to buy anything, you have to come down into town. And that's partly by design. And the shuttle bus is designed to come into town. And part of the reason for that is we're working on the employee housing aspect of it right now, and there's a good chance it'll be in town. So it'll be connected via shuttle bus.
I'll take the opportunity to say a good thing, and that is that it is normal, and you should expect this, but the project will give a substantial discount to all the residents. The residents will have a favorite.
I thought that was a given. No, we had to say that? Okay, good. All right.
It's in the master plan.
Yeah, sorry, just to be clear, that is stated in the full master plan. So when you read it, it will be in writing.
I'm curious about what your projected skier visits are for the early stages and then afterwards.
One is based on statistics that are available for the Canada West Skiers Association, which is Everest Statistics. And they will be good. They will be similar to the other mountain resorts. And that is what, of course, we have to say they will be. So, for example, on opening, it would be similar maybe to Kicking Horse Mountain Resort, which on opening went to 120,000 visitor days, and then quickly went up to 150, and I think by the third year was 200,000. But this project, as you saw, is not like Kicking Horse Mountain Resort. There is a third of a mountain up above to that one. And so we cannot prove that, but I would say it is reasonable to expect the visitors will be much larger. And how much larger, we cannot really say. But I think that the option B is the one that will be verified as being the correct one.
Well, I'm just kind of hoping that the community of Valemount has the infrastructure to be able to handle a project like this, especially with Trans Mountain putting the pipeline in a couple of years. It's going to be a very busy little town, and it may end up being a lot more problems than a person is looking at for a long run. It's the town itself is only designed for 2,000 and some people, I think maximum, and I've lived here just about all my life, and basically I really don't know if we really want to be another Jasper or not, but it's just my concerns as a community is that how much is it really going to change? And hopefully, I'm all in favor of change, but is the town itself going to be able to handle it? Just a question. Thank you.
It's a very good point, and two ways to respond. One is by example. The perception that this project is very large may be confusing. In Golden, I think you can verify when we started the project there was no significant impact on the infrastructure of Golden. These projects are actually totally self-sufficient. Water and sewer, power, everything will be supplied for at the resort. It will be paid for and it will be built by the developer. And initially, we are talking of only a relatively small number of employees and of people that would require services in Valemount. And I would say you probably would hardly notice the difference. The pipeline projects are a little bit different. They happen like a bang, and they are huge by comparison. So I would like to say that the numbers will show that your fears are very reasonable and very well placed, but they would apply to a project of a different kind. And this project, yes, it will become, we hope, significant and large, but it will be over 30 years, and there will be ample time to build the necessary accommodation in the village of Valemount, which will be in part built by the developer for employee housing, and of course at the resort site. Again, I want to emphasize the resort is not going to ask for any services from the village of Valemount of any kind.
To carry you through stage one?
Answer is yes. Come on, couple more. We need a couple more. I have my quota.
Sorry?
The local business community, to what extent will us as the local builders get the opportunity to grow our businesses in conjunction with this project?
Well, I would say that you will have by far the first and best opportunity, because you see, to bring in contractors from the outside, which may be necessary for specialized jobs, is very expensive and non-competitive, and you have an excellent workforce right here. So, and again, the project will not happen with a big bang. It will be incremental. At the beginning, as we were explaining, we are only really building a day lodge and a tea house at the top, which you can easily build with the local forces. It would be unprecedented to bring in somebody else. It would be very uneconomical. There will be some work. For example, the lift company, I have to say, the lift company will certainly employ someone local, because, you know, Gilbert Fields, for example, works for Puma, is a local resident and is one of the top lift builders. So you have lift builders right here in Valemount, but there will be people that will be specialists who will come from the outside. That is the only one that I can foresee right now. I don't know if it will be Puma or Doppelmayr. Puma is the advantage, it has a resident that is a top expert, but certainly that will be the only type of construction that will require outside experts. Those numbers are very small, though. We are talking maybe of 5 people.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the Jumbo Glacier development will it compete with this? Is it going on ahead of it, or will Valemount be looking to catch up to that, or how is that going to affect it?
I like this question. You know, I've been working on that project for 25 years, so I like to talk about it. As you know, there is currently there are currently 2 legal actions regarding that project, and some controversies. So it is my expectation now that this project will start construction. Well, Jumbo has started construction technically, but the major construction and the opening day is more likely to be here first and there second. So you will see that this one will open the way. But the way we see the 2 projects is really well represented by what the French delegation that you saw here had to say. They came to see both projects. Originally, they came to see the Jumbo Glacier Resort project. Actually, they started looking at that in 1993. But they said that after doing the skiing and the trip from there to here, this would be the most wonderful circle route for tourism in the world. And this is by people like La Compagnie des Alpes, who operate 39 ski areas. And they say that Jumbo Glacier Resort relates to Banff and to Calgary, and this one relates to Jasper and Edmonton, they complement themselves. Imagine Banff without Jasper, or Jasper without Banff, or without the connection. It would be good, it would be great, it would be a destination, but not nearly like what it would be with the 2. And so these 2 projects, I hope they happen concurrently. I think this one will start first, but certainly these 2 projects will put Western Canada on the map in a way that neither of the 2 by itself could. I think this will really transform. It will make Colorado pale by comparison. I really believe these 2 by themselves will transform the national parks and the way the rest of the world looks at this. And I have the evidence of the French. This is what they said after visiting here, and they came, as you know, twice. The French, incidentally, you may be interested in knowing, you may wonder why they haven't come out this year. The French are very interested. They are very busy in Russia. They have certain conditions in France of political nature that indicate that the Russian projects have priority for them now for economic and political reasons. And so we have not lost the relationship. They are, and we even have personal friendship. But I'm very happy that, as Steve said, we have a strong group that wants to do this project, and the French may come in as consultants or specialists. They will certainly come in for the lifts, but we don't depend on them for this project. What is encouraging for us, and I want to repeat, is that their opinion, which is totally independent and called for, was that these two projects together will form an absolutely unique worldwide destination together, just like Jasper and Banff. I hope this subject didn't create the chill that I see now. It's all good, actually.
Okay, I've got a question. So Valemount, up until relatively recently, saw itself as a forestry town. Recently, the community forest purchased the old mill site and has intentions of doing industrial, attracting industry. Is that something that the resort would work against, or would it try to keep Valemount? I've heard somebody mention Valemount overnight turning into Jasper, which that might take some time, but would the resort be ill-disposed to industry moving here, say if they could attract employees because we had a ski resort here?
No, I spoke before of the French, and it is interesting. Fred was with us in France, that here we have more room, and we have perhaps a better economic and political system. And we can see from their example, in more difficult circumstances, that tourism and industry can work very well together and should work very well together. After all, if we want to see the reality, tourism is part of a reality in which there are other people at work and other activities. So certainly they can be in conflict, but if industry is in conflict with tourism, it will probably be in conflict with the community too. As long as tourism is well done and works well with the community, it will be an ideal complement for tourism. And we have seen that, and we've seen that we were in France together, Fred. And one of the many examples.
I'd like to also add that there, industry, we have no intention of discouraging industry at all. That is not the intent. This is an add-on to what you're doing today. This is an add-on, this is a new addition to a potential lifestyle that will attract a lot of visitors, which will attract a lot of funding, which will attract a lot of spawning of businesses that are local. And I think what it will do is it will provide opportunities, as we have explained earlier, for people like yourselves. This is probably one of the most entrepreneurial group or a village, a township that I have ever seen in all my travels, because it's reality. I mean, the enthusiasm, as I said, this is something that it's up to you. It's not up to us. We are not going to force anybody to do anything. But the reality is, we want to be here, and we want you to be involved with us, and we want to be involved with you. And that's really, that's the story. I mean, that's really what it is. And that's why we appreciate your questions. So come on, a couple more.
May I just add one thing on the community forest, too? In fact, we're already working with the community forest on some of this summer's preliminary clearing and work on the road and the bridge. So it's a perfect example of how we can work very closely together and provide business for the community forest.
Right.
So I guess the multi-million-dollar question for me is, when would we expect to see cement trucks and ski towers flying overhead and all that kind of stuff? Best guess.
What time is it right now? No, you go ahead.
Yeah, our plan is to try to complete the approval process this year. It will be important if it is in September or if it is in December, in the sense that we need a little bit of time before the beginning of next year to plan construction. But if we can do that, And if we are as good as we think we are, we can start construction next year. And if we're good as we think we are, we might be able to open for Christmas 2016. It is a declared objective. It's not a promise. It depends on a lot of work and on decisions and events that are beyond our control, as you can well imagine. But that is our target. And I want to say that I told government staff that I see a similarity in what we had in Golden in 98 and 99, where we were able to have the final approvals that allowed us to go ahead in March of 2000, and we were able to open doors just with the day lodge and the tea house and the main spine of the lift in December of year 2000. I should share with you the irony, though. We put in all this effort, and we did meet the deadline of December 8, only to close after we opened because there was not enough snow. And we had to reopen. It was a bad year. We had to reopen on December. We were lucky. The snow came the week after, and we managed to reopen on December 23rd or 24th. Now, this will not happen here. That is why we like it.
Hey, Alberto. So we all know that just winter-based, right? So, but what other infrastructure have you allowed for the four-season, like for the summer use? Like, have you, in phase one, is there plan for and promotion of, say, the hiking trails? Anything? Is it going to be open to biking? Like, what are you supporting for the other four-season or the other 3 seasons of the year? Okay, our application, you should know, is for skiing and sightseeing. So those are the main drivers. And in phase one, we will offer what we believe will be the first destination for sightseers that will allow to stand on top of glaciers rather than at the bottom and look at the views from there, as well as small but certainly best summer skiing that we have in Canada or in North America, superior to Mount Hood and to Whistler. And that is fundamentally what we offer for the summer. There will be some biking, for example, on the construction road that will go up to the top, but the development of the biking trails is something that we told government staff will be a separate application in the future years. It is a very delicate environmental issue. We have to do it right. And so we expect that on opening, the biking trails will not be a priority. They will be definitely very important, as well as the other activities, but it will be, we'll have to do environmental studies and design each trail individually in the following years. And we won't have the time to do it between now and opening. But no doubt, that is a big demand. We understand.
I have a question about the terrain. You talk about the summer skiing, and right now the primary summer ski and training area is on Mount Hood at Timberline. Would you talk about sort of the scope of yours in relation to that in both the type of terrain you're planning and how big it will be?
Yes, first of all, as you know, Timberline is further south, and the snow conditions depend very much on salting, and there are just lanes for skiing at Timberline. For the Twilight Glacier, your local experts tell me that it is far superior, it is wider, there is more likelihood of having snow throughout the summer. And in any case, you can do snow farming to ensure that you have the snow like they do at those Alps, for example. So it will be definitely superior to Timberline. It will be a true year-round ski destination. But soon after, we hope to open the lift that will go to Mount Arthur, Maine, and the glacier below it. And that one, you've seen the pictures, it's truly large. That one will provide opportunity not just for a ski school, but also for ski training. So that one will be by far the best.
Are you going to have lanes in similar training situations like they have at Timberline, or is it going to be completely open?
It's a good question that I should not answer because I will not be in charge of operations, but I expect that there will be room for both. I expect that the glacier is sufficiently large. In fact, we already show 2 different lifts that will open up the 2 sides of the glacier, and it is my hope that we'll have skiing for everyone as well as skiing for the ski racers. That is the hope, and I expect that the developer and the operation people will do that. If it doesn't happen on Twilight Glacier, it will certainly happen on the big one at Mount Arthur, Maine. There is also an economic factor. We know the example of places in Europe like Passo Stelvio and the Deux Alpes, but especially Passo Stelvio, which thrived by having both. They had the ski racers, but also had the public at large, and especially ski schooling. And I expect that if my opinion will not prevail, the economics will prevail.
Earlier in the presentation, it was mentioned that there was a meeting with Northern Development Initiative Trust, and that there may be some opportunities for local businesses coming from that, from those discussions. Are you able to elaborate on that a little bit?
I can't tell you a lot of the details other than that, as I say, we are committed to investing in some arm's length way so that you will have, that we won't be the ones to decide on the businesses. And one of the things we were encouraged was that the Northern Development Trust had some examples from other places where they can put not only some ability to help those businesses grow, but some money as well, so it won't only be what we invest in. And it's premature for us to talk about specifics, but we will certainly, on one of our next trips back, now with this information, we'll be working on it, but we need you to think. We can think about what our needs are that might, for instance, the construction needs and the kind of businesses, but this will also be for businesses to start to develop, to serve not as part of the resort itself, but for instance, your question about the summer activities, we've told you there's going to be a lag in terms of the actual on-mountain activities, but that's a perfect opportunity for way more experience for the summer. The summer visitors are going to come to ride the lift and go and see the top of the mountain, but businesses that will get them to stay for 2 or 3 days or a week and have the kind of wonderful mountain experiences that I know you're offering already. And I've heard some people say, oh, you're frustrated that there aren't more people that are coming. Well, if we can work out that basis. So we'll have more examples as time goes by. Not a long time, but weeks and months.
Yeah, my question is in regard to the extension of the airport. Will that be looked at after the first phase is completed or after the second phase? Like, what is your priority list for the extension of the airport?
I don't know. Is the honest answer. The airport isn't fundamental to the success of the project. It can't be, because the reality is that we won't have wide-bodied jets arriving, bringing hundreds of passengers, right? It'll be private airplanes, smaller numbers of people, very important people, but the project can't hinge on that clientele. There's just not enough of it. So we expect that the airport will expand. We expected that it will expand in proportion to the demand that the resort generates. We don't know what that demand is. We don't know. We weren't involved in the study that was done by Urban Systems, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, looking into the expansion of the airport. And this is something that the regional and local governments will address over time.
But let me add, if you build it, they will come, and I would like to say, your mayor mentioned to me, and she may want to confirm, that there is an implied promise by the previous premier that very likely the current premier would continue to support that once a project of this kind is built and there is a demand, then the province, maybe with even the federal government, will actually do that. And maybe you will see those jumbo jets come in, and if you build it, they will come.
My question kind of comes from some of the history that we have in Valemount of some of the past unsuccessful, tourist destination type stuff, and my hope is that, of course, that you're not in that same boat. But obviously, you have lots of experience with successful ski resorts and successful tourist destinations, and I think it's easy enough for all of us to count all of the positive spin-offs from a project like this. But I'm curious as to what your knowledge is and what your experience is of growing pains, say with a project like this. And some of the possibly negative challenges that a community like this would have to overcome with a project like this.
There is no question that growing pains and issues and problems go along with any major project. I've built projects in my career, mostly in the resource sector, that had problems on an hourly basis, not a weekly basis. But you deal with them. And one of the things that if you got, everyone in terms of looking at the master plan and talking to us and listening to who we are, that's an important thing, because we are a small group, but we are, in my opinion, an accomplished group. We have the track records. And so therefore, yes, there's going to be problems. But as I said in the very, very beginning, we're persistent buggers, okay? And we don't give up. And our track record says so. And the reason is we don't give up is because we're passionate and we believe. We will face problems, you will have problems, we will have cross problems. Well, there's always problems. The key is solving the problems. And we believe we have enough experience and persistence, and we listen. Try to listen. If we listen enough and we talk enough to you, us, Sims, businesses, other people, we'll get the problem solved. It's just making sure that everyone on all sides wants to solve those problems. Because as I said earlier, we don't want to solve those problems, they won't get solved. But we are not walking away, we are not leaving. You're going to see us around. So whether or not you like us or not, we will be here. But we have to have you like us. We have to have you as the community here, as the community in Sims, as the community in the international markets to bring people here, become interested. Those are the communities. We need to bring all those people together. Yeah.
Some of the problems might not necessarily be on just the development end, but growing pains within the village. And what I'm wondering is basically like with your experience in these kind of growing pains and with your experience with other towns having these growing pains, what do you know of? Are you approachable by the village of, well, I'd hope so at least, on some of the solutions to those kind of growing pains?
I'm going to leave a stack of my business cards with direct line. You can call me anytime, because we're interested. And yes, we understand that there's, as you said, there's going to be social issues and growing pains in all sorts of these particular areas, besides the development, besides the operations. And we're not, Superman. But we're going to try to accommodate. We're going to try to help solve a lot of these issues with you, not for you, with you. Social issues are all around us, and the fact is, but You know, we're not parachuting in and solving your problems. We're parachuting in to work with you to solve problems. That's really what we're doing.
I think the question might have been, what problems are you going to bring with you?
Yeah.
Well, that's my question.
Just
While you're busy looking after your very important people up there on the mountain, and down here in Valemount, we're housing the people that work part-time, 487 of them, where are you going to be?
The thing to keep in perspective is that it is a very slow-moving project. It's not, again, like a pipeline or even a mine that opens up and starts producing within months. This is a project that will be built up over years and years. So yeah, it's transformative, but it's slow transformation, very slow transformation. And because it's slow, you can't, first of all, you can't predict a lot of issues because they're societal issues. What will happen will be an influx of visitors. So with those visitors, you don't generally speaking, people who go to ski resorts aren't, drug dealers, aren't car thieves, and aren't those members of society. They tend to be middle to upper income people, families, those sorts of visitors. So it's more of a question of, okay, the grocery store is crowded. We don't have, we're running out of XYZ. Those kinds of inconveniences in the early years. But over time, the community will adapt to those kinds of issues. Again, in terms of developers or planners, we can plan, but it's always a question of reacting to what's on the ground and what's happening in real time. And that's why Steve's comments here about dialogue are so important.
Perhaps I should add this. What we are planning to do is not mysterious. All you have to do is to pay a visit to Golden, Revelstoke, or even some of the older projects such as Whistler. And of course, Whistler is 10 times bigger in terms of order of magnitude. But you can see those precedents in terms of the problems generated. And much depends on the quality of the developer, actually. For example, Resort of the Rockies, some people say that at Fournier, so the developer could have done certain things better. I want you to know that our investor group wants us to look at those examples and to do better, because they think we have a love affair here. They are very appreciative of the fact that there is a love affair between the developer and the community, absolutely unique. As you know, normally developer is the ugly developer that doesn't work with communities. And in this particular case, we also have among our client group Hunter Milburn, who was one of the founders of the Revelstoke project. And the mandate is let's keep the love affair going, and we'll do our best to do that. For a tourism resort project, it is best to keep something like this continue, because the atmosphere of the resort, of the village at the base, which is you, is crucial for the success of a tourism destination. People will come here, and we want to see a smiling community, a thriving community, people who are happy. Our mandate and the future generations' mandate will be to keep that going. We'll need your help, but so, as Steve was saying, we have a love affair going. We want to keep it going. With your help, we'll do it. We may not be always up to, and it will not be my fault, it will be their fault if we're not up to it. But you know, there is goodwill, and I wish to tell you that I've had a lot of clients, I worked with a lot of developers and groups. In many cases, for example, your client is a very large corporation with a board of directors. All it takes is a change in the board of directors, and everything changes. And in this case, we have a group of individuals. We don't have a public company that has this potential change. And I have a high regard for these individuals. I think not only we have the best relationship with the community, we may also have the best developers available. So let's pray this is the case, but so far it is very promising. there is no guarantee. And also we could all pass away, and the new generation, of course, could be much worse than us. But again, we hope not. And we are working for something that is good.
May I just add something too? One of the things that's been wonderful about our work so far is that we've really got to know the councils, the mayors, the people from the regional district, and so we're really committed to planning well with you. And you know, you go to many resorts these days, and we're all going to end up with Australian accents, is the expectation that we have, because that's where a lot of the people who work in many of the resorts come from. Our attitude is we want the jobs first and foremost, not only in our business, but in your companion businesses, to be ones that will start to keep your children here and to provide the opportunities for people who live here to work. So even of the number of people with full-time or part-time jobs, we hope that, for instance, we'll be able to work with your learning center. And there are some wonderful programs in the local universities and colleges, and you know, the outdoor recreation program, Bruce, that you've been a great part in bringing forward, and that a lot of your young people have taken. Selkirk College has a wonderful ski resort technician program. We really want to work to make sure that, first of all, it's the local people of Valemount, and then the people from the next surrounding areas. That was another thing we talked to the Northern Development Trust about, is we're getting to know you in the very nearby local area, but there's the whole north as well. So we hope this is going to be a magnet for people to improve their lives. And especially, we're of a generation that, you know, you see the young people of our families in this business, and we hope that that's what it's going to be for you too.
That was first down there, sorry. Okay.
I was just curious about what you were just saying about hiring local, if that would be contractual understanding, or is that just like a stated priority?
That's a good question.
Would you be contractually obligated to?
It is a policy in the master plan, but it also makes good sense. I mean, on every level, economic, social. I mean, we view it as a partnership with the community. The fact that we're even here is because of the support that this community has for this project, and it just makes good sense from a neighborliness point of view, from economic point of view, to go local first. There's no, and that applies not just people, but also materials, machines. It is, for example, it is mandated in the design guidelines that you use local materials first, locally sourced, you know, stone, wood, those sorts of things. I don't know if you can contractually obligate who would the contract be with. You know, yeah, it's a commitment. Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to make a promise of that nature, right? Because, you know, even demographically, the town changes quite dramatically in the sense that one year you might have 100 kids graduating from high school, another year you might have 20. You know, there's just not enough population to make a commitment in that respect, right? But, sorry, to make a contractual obligation in that respect, but you can't make a commitment, which is what has been done, so.
That was pretty much the question I was going to ask you, is along the same lines. You speak of slightly over 3,000 man-years of construction labor. Break it down into 30 years, that's 100-odd jobs every year. Is there a percentage of local artisans that you're going to use for either skilled labor or unskilled labor?
Well, maybe, you know, what really we should look at is the experience and look at what happened in Ravenstock, Golden, places like that. When we started in Golden, practically all of the labor was local. There were, of course, a few people who moved in order to work there, but it was their own choice, and it's a free country. But there is an obvious economic reason why the locals, without any need of any obligations, not just the policy, but the locals have by far the best opportunity. Cost is the first factor. People who come in will have to have higher cost, and therefore there will be higher labor costs. So the locals are by far the most competitive people, and naturally. So as I say, when we were doing the opening of Golden, except for some people that POMA, the lift company, had, and there were, I think, maybe there were 5 people who were from the outside. We had some construction superintendents and management people, including ourselves, who were coming from the outside. But otherwise, pretty well, I think, all of the work was done by people that were from Golden. Admittedly, Golden has a population that is about double that of Valemount. So, but certainly that is one more reason why the people in Valemount will be stressed, actually, to get to do all the jobs.
What is the employment you're looking at the end of phase 1?
I have to pull out the master plan for that, quite honestly. In terms of full-time employees of the resort, off the top of my head, it's in a range of 30 to 50 full-time employees. Part-time is very difficult what the economists do is they take all the part-time jobs and aggregate the hours and turn them into full-time jobs, because in certain instances people aren't available to work full-time. People, for example, a shuttle bus driver may not want to do that full-time. So the job is divided between 2 people. So I guess the more accurate way to say it, there will be in the range of, say, for the total resort, say 100 full-time jobs that need to be filled, whether it's by 200 people doing it at half-time or by 150 people with 50 full-time and the rest part-time, right? It's hard to break that down at this point. So, but that's the range, I think, in the first phase.
Okay. The other question, you touched on it briefly, saying there's not going to be a lot of retail at the resort base. What kind of amenities are you looking at, and what amenity services are you looking at the resort base? And I'm asking, obviously, from the impact of, is it going to be pretty self-sufficient out there, or are people going to use the local businesses for their needs?
A very good question. The problem with retail at resort bases like this, it's very difficult for the merchants because you have a transient population coming and going, right? So, with the exception, say, of a convenience store and most likely maybe some luxury boutiques that caters expressly to certain segments of the tourism market, you're not going to have a full-scale grocery store. You're not going to have, a gas station. You're not going to have regular clothing stores. Those kinds of operations just aren't sustainable with a transient tourism population. So it'll be in town. And the fact that there's already critical mass in town gives it a leg up on the resort. So what will be at the resort will be amenities for tourists, such as there will be a founders club with a pool and a health center. There will be probably the offices of the resort management. There will be facilities for ski patrol. There will be the ski school, ski rental shops. But as we've seen in other resorts, there will be the rental shop up on the mountain and the rental shop in town. And the smart people rent in town, and the people who are looking for convenience rent on the mountain. And usually there's a big price difference. But there's enough business to support both business models. So,
is there anything that would stop this project from becoming a reality?
Probably 1,000 things, but we don't know what they are. Currently, The approval process, because of the overwhelming support there is, we are really confident in the approval process, and as I was saying, we really expect to complete it this year, and we have a very capable, reliable, credible group whose representatives are here, whom we know are willing and able to provide what it takes to start construction. The only true question is whether we will be able to deliver the opening on Christmas 2016 or 2017. I have to be honest there. I'm working and my office is working hard for the earlier opening, but yes, there is 1,000 things that could make us lose that opening and open the year after. That is probably the biggest question we have. But keep it for yourself. I want to open at Christmas 2016.
I guess this is the last question, and then I would like already to thank on behalf of the Ski Society, everybody coming out, and of course there's still coffee, tea, there's some sweets, and we can still talk and ask questions to the proponents also after this kind of type of formal presentation. So Laura, here.
I was happy to hear that you said that local people receive discounted passes at the ski hill. I think it's really important in a way to integrate the town with the resort is to have kind of a ski culture here, and that's one way to do it, is to make sure that there aren't financial barriers for people to partake in that if they want to. My question is, how can you make that promise if you're not doing the operations? And my second question is, what timeline are you talking, like 20 years, 5 years?
Okay, when I say I'm not doing operations, it's not that we here are not going to have a say on operations, but in any event, we will put in the master development agreement certain things that are going to be offered because we want to make a commitment that will be good for every future operations manager and company. And I cannot say exactly what will be in the master development agreement at the moment, but it will be there, and it will be a substantial discount that will be permanent. It is expected to be gone forever. This is normal. It is normal here in Canada. It's normal in Europe. Residents, for obvious economic reasons even, are given a substantial discount so that they are encouraged and they are the primary users of the mountain. There is no secret. It is in the best interest of the company to do it. But we like to show that in the master development agreement to cement the relationship between the local community and the developer so that there is this certainty that the community will always be favored. It's only normal.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out on behalf of the Ski Society again. And I'd like to really thank these guys because they didn't have to come here and give us this presentation today. Nothing had to come to us until the formal presentations from the government. So we're getting a pre-look here to actually do something to support it or get things changed that you might not like. Some of your questions were very valid. So please feel free to contact them at any time. They will put their information out, and it will be out publicly later.
Don't forget the website, valemountglaciers.com.
Okay. And don't forget the snacks. I'm tired of eating all those donuts over there.